So is your microphone on, Teresa?
Hello?
Hi there. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine, thank you.
Oh, excellent. All right. Yeah, thanks for joining us today, Teresa. I'm David. I'll be doing the presentation when we get a few more people on. And Larry. Yes. So welcome, Larry. Can you hear us okay?
Greetings. Hello from London. Hiya.
Excellent. Okie dokie.
Yeah. Unfortunately not. It's a very uncommon surname, but no, I don't know Stephen, no. No. Thanks. No. I mean, that's good because when you talk about DBS checks, mine come back straight away because my surname is bang within a week or so. So it's got its positive.
There's not many names to go through, is there, with that surname?
No.
Sure. Okay. Right. So. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so I'm hoping everybody can hear me. So what I'll do is say, firstly, thank you, Jamie, for allowing me to come along and give my sort of voice of experience to this subject. What I'd hope to do is to be able to provide you with some understandings of some research I've conducted when I was in the US and how we can use that hopefully for some benefit of the UK. What I'd like to do is probably around about half an hour or so of going through the presentation. As you go through, if there's any questions that you're interested to learn more, please put them in the chat and we can pick them up at the end of the presentation. We'll then have an opportunity to have a little bit of Q&A afterwards if you wish. Any sort of things are raised. I'd like to then sort of maybe pose 3 or 4 questions about entrepreneurship and your experiences. It'd be great to hear of your sort of understanding. And then really a little bit about, my organisation, what I do to finish off. So hopefully, we shouldn't be more than an hour and a half of your time because I know it's very, very precious. So thanks very much. So if all things are going well, I hope that I will be able to share my screen. So bear with me a second. Okay, so from the beginning. So I hope everybody can see what we're looking at, and yeah, please, as I say, feel free to put any questions that you want to ask in the chat box as we go, and we'll pick them up at the end. So as we said here, Entrepreneurs Unlocked, CIC is my organisation. I'll tell you a little bit about that at the end, but what I wanted to discuss today is how I felt entrepreneurship can support reducing reoffending, and this is sort of lessons from the USA by myself, who's the founder and director of my own company. So first things first, in terms of what is it all about? How did I manage to get to America? So I was lucky enough to be awarded a Winston Churchill Memorial Trust travelling grant back in 2018, which seems a long time ago now. And basically fellowships, as it says there, it's a unique program of research that is conducted overseas. And pre-COVID, around about 150 individuals each year were awarded these fellowships, and really everybody from all part of the UK was encouraged to attend, and basically looking at things such as education, health, communities, culture, enterprise. And it's really about being able to go to another place, look at what is being done there as best practice, and bring that knowledge and learning back so we can empower individuals to learn from the world. If those people are interested, there is a website which is wmct.org.uk, which you can have a look at what the programs are and how they might be supporting yourself. So if that's something you might want to consider in the future, as I say, due to COVID at the moment, those programs are not being delivered. But again, there is potential to apply, I think, for next year. So that's a little bit of background about the trust and how I got there. So really just to sort of think about, what was happening. So for me as an individual, I was fortunate enough to travel to New York, Washington, Virginia, North Carolina, Nebraska, and California, looking at different organizations and different ways that entrepreneurship is utilized to find a ways to reducing the rate of reoffending or recidivism, as they would sort of say in the US. So this presentation will take you through some of the key learning points and some of the information that I thought would be quite important, and I'll be really interested at the end to learn about what your thoughts are on the topic. So let me think about it. So let's have a bit of context where we are at the moment. Those who may know, depending upon which week you look at the statistics, there's around about 80,000 men and women in prisons in sort of England and Wales. Quite a high number, as we know. We compare that to the US. Currently, around about 2.25 million people in the US are currently serving jail sentences. So again, you can see a considerable amount of scale there. We know that, unfortunately, adults released from custody, the rates of reoffending are sort of less than 1 in 2. It's come down slightly. So 44% of adults who release from custody, sort of reoffend, which is a big sort of cost to the taxpayer. And the question really is, why 60% again is for, I think it's people serving sentences less than 12 months. So we can see that the shorter the sentence, the higher the risk and rates of reoffending. So how does that compare to the US? Why did I go and travel to America? So again, would you believe, similar, their sort of 2-year reoffending rates of people coming out of custody is 44%. And I think it's in excess of 60% is the rate of reoffending, or sort of 68% for people that are reoffending in after 3 years. So you can see there's a considerable amount of people coming through the system. So in terms of cost, we know that 3.6 billion pounds is the cost of keeping someone in the prisons. So that's on average of £44,500 per person per year, based on the latest figures from the Ministry of Justice. Slightly lower in the US, $36,000. We know that according to the MOJ reports, £6 billion is the cost of reoffending for people being released from custody. And overall cost of reoffending, we know, is in excess of £18 billion a year. Bigger numbers in the US, so $82 billion is the cost of incarceration in the US, and they estimate that $1 trillion is the cost to the American economy for keeping someone in jail, and the cost of reoffending. So tremendous numbers. So the question really is, why would I go to a country like America, where they have these such high rates, such high costs, to find examples of best practice? And really because there are some great programs there that are really bucking the trend. So what I hope to show you is some examples of those programs, how they're working, and then for you to sort of see how these could potentially be utilized in the UK. So here we go. Just a little summary out there. Cost of reoffending from custody, we said, is £6 billion. 70,000 people on average get released from prison each year. Average reoffending rates is 44%. So the average number of reoffenders, give or take, is just over 30,000. So that's estimated costs of £195,000 per person. So what we're trying to advocate is that, if we can use entrepreneurship, we can use ways of helping someone to be a better version of themselves, maybe set up their own business. They won't come back to jail, they won't cost the economy the money, and therefore they will be a contributor to society. I would share the video, but it's not playing, unfortunately. But again, when you get a copy of the presentation through the YouTube channel, you take the time to look up Defy Ventures. And again, there's some really great videos about how those things might work. I might try this again at the end, so bear with me, but I want to just sort of go through for now. So I was lucky enough to go and visit, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 20, 25 different organizations over a month period. Some of these are small organizations, some of these are large organizations. So hopefully you can see that there are lots of projects that I saw where we had some really good successes. So a little bit of stats. So are these organizations doing some great work? So Defy Ventures in North California, they, up to the date of that I was there, they had over 500 entrepreneurs in training graduates, 180 were engaged in post-release program, and we use the term recidivism for the American market. So less than 5% of those who are engaged in the post-release program came back to jail, which I think is a significant reduction compared to others. So if someone not got their mic off, there's just a bit of paper shuffling in the background, if that's possible, please. So Last Mile Coders, and again, I'll talk to you about what they do. They had 200 participants, 50 people have released, and none of them have come back to jail. So Last Mile Coders teach people in San Quentin prison, how to code, how to build websites, and again, particularly within the Northern California demographics, lots of tech companies were looking to support people, with those skills. So again, it's about recognizing they have a talent, taking them on as a freelancer, taking them on as a worker, again, so nobody at that time had come back to jail. So Defy Nebraska, which again is, I'll talk a little bit about their program. They've worked with over 200, so 100 people in prisons. 100% of those were in employment in work release facilities, which is similar to what we would call the Category D open prisons. And again, less than 5% of their people had come back to jail. And you can see the last two here, less than 3%. And there's a really great program in Washington called Inmates to Entrepreneurs. So over 700 program participants, so over 10% had started small businesses, again, putting their money where their mouth is, starting their businesses, helping to sort of contribute to society, but really, most importantly, being able to use those entrepreneurial skills to start their own businesses. So the details, again, last few, I won't go through these too many details, but again, you can see they're quite startling compared to other sort of programs. The current rates of reoffending in the UK and the US. So again, less than 2% recidivism. Businesses started up by former prisoners, people into sustained employment, Refoundry, which is a really great program, which I'll talk to you about later in the presentation. Again, incubated businesses, looking at upcycling, pre-loved furniture, started 10 incubated businesses. Nobody's come back to jail, and those businesses now employ over 125 people. And basically, there's £30,000 going back into the taxation and the economic system per person, rather than the $36,000 coming out, to keep someone in jail. Okay, moving on. So what are these programs doing, and how does entrepreneurship help? So really, Defy Ventures run a long program, and I think that's quite striking in terms of the difference maybe to some of the programs in the UK jail system. Its programs tend to be short, they tend to be not well funded, and once they're run, they then sort of start and stop. So it's quite difficult to get some sort of stats. But basically, they run around the program called Be the Chief Executive Officer of Your New Life, and it's facilitated by members of Defy and former prisoners, former people who are still in custody but have done their programs. So a lot of peer-to-peer mentoring, And they look at a number of things here. So we talk about growth and resilience, forgiveness, emotional intelligence, skills development, coaching days, pitching competitions. So it's a real concentrated program that sort of enables people to understand what it means to use their entrepreneurial skills. And what's really quite key to understand, particularly most of these programs, is that they are actually not funded by the state. So they are philanthropic organisations, grant maintained, and most of their programs are run outside the core day. So they're run at lunchtimes, they're run in evenings. So again, there's some great degree of commitment from the person taking part in the program. And really, what I wanted to say about Defy Ventures, it's it's an intensive program. It's not for everybody, but really it's about understanding who you are as a person, looking to think about what you've done in the past. It's helping you employ prospects in the future, because again, one of their successes is that people that come through the programs may initially go to work for a company. So the company is seeing people with great entrepreneurial skills. So what they're saying there is, if you're good at problem solving, you're good at negotiation, good at timekeeping, you are very good at networking and sales. That's the type of person you want in your business. And they hone and refine those skills. And what's really quite interesting is they have business preparation and business coaching days. So I was lucky enough to attend personally some of these sessions, and they would bus in 30 to 40 volunteers for the day, and they would look at someone's business plan, they'd look at their ideas, they'd talk to them and make them feel like a human being, which I think is really quite important. And it culminates in business pitching. So again, the graduates of the programs pitch for funding upon release. That might be to help them to buy tools and equipment, and again they would get post-release support. So similar to what you might be offering through Inside Out Wales and my business is, you develop an idea, but you need some help once you're in the community. So that's really where I felt that was quite a good program. And that's very, very simple and very similar to resilience education. So it's about entrepreneurial re-entry. And one of the things that was good there is that basically their tutors were MBA students from the local university. So they would go in and get their sort of teaching experience, but also be facilitated with some other mentors. And it's about personal growth, Socratic learning methods and personal skills. And they do the entrepreneurial skills development, financial literacy, business foundation, and coaching and mentoring. So you can see there's quite a similarity in their programs. And I think what's quite key to sort of understand is that really this is about developing the person, making them recognize that they have skills and talents and gifts, and it's finding a way to nurture them and bring that talent and skill to the fore. So don't be held back by your past. It's about using those skills and talents in a different way. And we know from our own experience, talking to people, there might be people that have in the past been sort of selling illegal substances, and they've got a lot of entrepreneurial talent, in terms of the skills and the networking and the finance, but they just don't know how to sell a legal product and how to sort of make sure things are worked up. So this is about using those skills, using the entrepreneurial skills and mindset to find ways of being able to find a business that you might want to get set up. So a couple of pictures. Again, you can see on the top left, one of the things that's quite impactful is they get the volunteers to go through a high five tunnel when they arrive. So high tempo music, quite empowering, and it's a very quick introduction to the entrepreneurs in training, which is what they're known as on this particular program. You can see on the right hand side, again, this is almost like sort of speed business pitching. So the volunteers would have sort of 10 minutes with each of the entrepreneurs in training. We'd talk to them about themselves, their ideas, what they wanted to do. And then over the period of the morning session, they'd get sort of some initial feedback from around about 10 to 15 people, which I think is really, really important. And again, it's quite a high tempo, quite a high energy event. We know that the Americans are quite sort of open in terms of how they like to present themselves. I'm not sure how well this might transfer to the UK, but I think the foundations are really, really key, is that it's about engaging with someone with an idea, giving them great feedback, giving them some support so they might think about this as a future job. Then they underpin that with the knowledge and then they get the support upon release. And again, the proof is in the pudding. Excuse me, as I say, less than 5% of those who are released have returned to jail, within the time of writing, which I think is quite an immeasurable thing to talk about. One of the other things that they do, which I think is really quite important, is about celebrating success. So you can see in the picture there, some ladies receiving their IOU checks, from between, I think, $200 and $500 and $1,000, which will help them upon their release. And because they've done an accredited program, they graduate. So there's a graduation ceremony that comes in. There's people can come there, their families can come along, and they can share in that success. And I think that's really, really important. So they have a sense of self-worth, they have a sense of purpose. And again, it helps them engage with the business community and also engage with their families. So you can see there, transforming my hustle. I am the CEO of my new life. It really is about transformation. Just as an aside, on the right-hand side at the bottom, you can see a guy in a blue t-shirt. So his name is Jason, and he's being talked to by Jeremy, who is the CEO of Defiant, Nebraska. And basically, Jeremy was formerly incarcerated. He did the programs, and upon release, he was taken on as a business mentor and a program manager. So he now works with men and women in the community to think about starting their own business, and he also supports some of the programs in custody. So again, there's a full circle there in terms of their development. So again, using his enterprising skills, to be the best version of himself. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding of, some of the thoughts around this particular program. So again, it's all around personal transformation, using those skills, understanding who you are, getting the support. And as you say, it's run over a course of 3 to 6 months, one evening a week. So it needs a degree of commitment and access to the person. And I know that could be a challenge potentially in some of the UK prisons. But again, people moving around and transient population. But potentially, if there's a way of, engaging with the prisons and finding the right individuals, surely we can see this could be a great way to be successful. Okay, another two sort of programs similar to what I just want to talk about. So changing perceptions. Again, you can see here on the left-hand side, lots of things about personal development, mindfulness, wellness, humbleness, resilience, all skills that the person needs to develop if they want to progress. They do a lot around personal finance, business startup, and they also have a graduation program and post-graduation support and trading support. And I think if someone's wanting to develop themselves and set up a business, I think it's really key to think about, you've got to start this in the custody and manage that transition into the community, and then help that person once they're in the community to get themselves set up. One of the other things to talk about, which can be quite difficult to think about, is Refoundry. So that's a paid apprenticeship in no uncertain terms. That's basically a community-based program. So people that have come through their prison system get released, and this is in New York and in California. And basically, again, you can see personal growth is a massive, massive part there. Life skills, wellness, mindfulness, resilience. They learn about financial education, craft skills, and over 12 months they receive a wage while they learn about how to set up their own craft-based business. They learn the tools they needed to make tables and chairs and chests of drawers. Pre-loved furniture gets sort of redone, and they've got to hit monthly revenue goals. And at the end of the 12 months, they can then to say, right, we're going to go employed with someone else, or we're going to become an incubated business and get a further 6 months support over the 18-month program. And again, those people that have come through the system, understand that it's not a short-term solution. It's about developing those skills. It's about developing that mindset. It's about developing that support. And what's really quite good about, particularly the Refoundry program, it gives people the opportunity to understand how to sell products. They're going to have their products put in galleries, they're put in sort of local markets. And again, they know then if they want to provide enough income for themselves, there's certain sales targets they need to hit, which comes back into the program. So again, as we said before, this program here is fully paid for through grant funding, which again is sometimes quite a challenge here in the UK. But again, the funding paid for these first 12 places that I saw back at the end of 2018, and nobody had come back to jail. 125 people employed in their businesses. So again, it's a fantastic achievement. And I think there's a couple of pictures just to show those things there. So again, important about celebrating success. So this is in Washington, DC. So with Aspire. So again, lots and lots of opportunities to showcase, they get a certificate from their local university to get their support. And they also showcase their products. So when I was there, the food was provided by, I think, this gentleman here. So he catered for the event. This gentleman here also supported, and he's got here, he set up his own business and helped support people with criminal histories. And again, there's just a couple of other slides there. Project Nova, again, big into construction, which, as we know, is an area of the business in the UK that is quite open to employing people with criminal histories. But again, some of those will then go to set up their own businesses as well. And this guy here, just as an aside, set up an app to connect families with their loved ones in the prison. So again, you can then go on his app, you can download, you can print off a postcard with a message for a loved one with a special picture on it. And now he's getting funding from Boeing, Ernst Young Foundation in the US, and he's running that out to a number of prisons. So again, very entrepreneurial. That's okay so far. Just a few more pictures. So again, Refoundry on the right hand side, as we said, so they have workshops that people can utilize. They have the tools and equipment. This guy here is called Gene. He was in custody for probably 15 years, but found he had a skill and a talent for furniture restoration. So he now produces furniture to residents of New York. He was charging $500, $600, $700 for tables and chairs, and was blown away by the fact that you can actually get money for those types of things. Want to sort of point out this con body here. So this is a fitness business that was set up by a guy called Cosmart when he was in prison in New York. His sort of claim to fame is that he helped his fellow inmates on a program lose 1,000 pounds in weight over a 6 months period. Got out of jail, recognized that there's a business opportunity, and he now operates out of a New York business, and he does sort of in-cell workouts to members of the public, charges for the sessions. He also does Zoom sessions. He's been in the UK, I've met him a few times, but again, he, by his own admission, was a big-time drug dealer. He was selling sort of products on the street, but he reckoned he would be dead by the time he was 30. So again, using his entrepreneurial skills and talent to think about, well, how can I sell a different product? How can I meet my market? How can I give my customers what I want in order for them to pay me for a legal activity rather than something which is going to put me in jail? So again, yeah, he bought the doors on eBay, I think, of a real prison which has been refurbished. So hopefully that gives you a bit of understanding in terms of some examples of entrepreneurship. So really, what did we learn and what can we bring back here to the UK? So it's all about support. So the individual obviously needs support from their family. They could potentially become an employee of an organisation. They can maybe become a business owner. The learning is about this holistic approach. So it's about relationships. It's about their health and well-being. It's about what are their career aspirations. It's about learning about money and who they are as an identity, and really about themselves and their future. So understanding who you are is really important, which is why entrepreneurship, I think, is not just about running a business. It's about recognizing your skills and talents. It's about understanding you can use these in a different way. It's about also being employment ready. So a lot of the programs that we see in terms of entrepreneurship, what they do is upon release is they go and work for somebody for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, learning about the type of business maybe they want to set up. But also, they may offer fantastic value to an employer. So again, who doesn't want someone who is very entrepreneurial within their business? That's going to make them to be a far more valuable employee. So again, that could help them in the future. again, entrepreneurship overall. It's about being entrepreneurial, business skills, innovation, wealth, job creation, developing yourself. I think it's really, really important to do that. And really, the summary is around that it's a long-term supported approach for these entrepreneurial programs. The person's got to take personal responsibility for what they do and the things they've done in the past, and hopefully get over that and use their skills in a different way. It's about career choices. What do I want to do in my life? It's underpinned by entrepreneurial development, stable employment focus, and as it says there, today's business startup could be tomorrow's employer. So again, we heard from Refoundry, that they're really quite keen to find ways to help people to develop their own businesses in the future, which I think is quite key. So really, it's just wanted to give you a flavour of what entrepreneurship is, how we think that programs could work. Clearly there's some successes in the US in a very, very challenging environment. Again, who doesn't want reoffending rates to be in single figures? It's helps society, it helps the individual, it helps the economic well-being, and it puts someone on the right track in the future. Really key points. It's not about the nuts and bolts of being self-employed, as we said. It's about entrepreneurial skills can positively impact on themselves, their family, the employment market, and themselves. It's about knowing yourself, your gifts, and how to harness them. And I think sometimes people need to be thinking about this type of pathway earlier in their custody. So again, sometimes self-employment is seen as a last resort if they don't think they can get work in their current career or previous career. But think about it as early as possible. Try and find ways of learning about what it means to be entrepreneurial. Use those skills, maybe in prison workshops, in the classroom, as a person, to be a better person on the wing. I think it's really important about commissioning for a sustainable future. So hopefully as part of our discussion, I'll be interested to learn what you think about, how this could work in the future. And it's about investing, as we said right at the beginning, this is costing the UK economy billions of pounds a year. So why not invest in the best, find the best programs, find ways of understanding how people can be the best versions of themselves. Little quote from Winston Churchill, as it says here, the empires of the future are the empires of the mind. So it's a lot about mindset and attitude and the power of their ideas and their potentials to be change makers. What we'll do as well is when we put some links up, if people are interested in the full version of my report, it's available to download, and there's a link which I'll put in the chat, or again, you can go through it through my website, which I'll give you the further details in a second. So hopefully I just really wanted to give you, sort of 30 minutes of entrepreneurship, what it's been working on in America, and how we can potentially bring this knowledge back into the UK. So again, as Jamie said, these things are being recorded. So this is my email address. If you want to drop me an email, this is my phone number, and the website here is something that you can have a look at some of the programs and courses that I offer. I'll talk a little bit about at the end. And again, there's an opportunity there for you to download the report if that's what you wish to do. So I think, if I'm right, that's about the end of that. So I'm conscious that I have been talking for half an hour at all. I just wanted to thank themselves for taking the time to have a listen. And really, I suppose it's a question to think about. Any thoughts or comments, Jamie or Mark? Any things you want to pitch in, Teresa and Larry, on what you've seen, and any thoughts, and just have a bit of an open discussion, really, to sort of get your thoughts on the topic. So Jamie, firstly, I suppose.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much, David. Thanks. Really interesting presentation. Lots of really interesting stuff you touched on. So just hand the floor over to you. Any questions?
Yeah, hi David. Really good presentation. Thanks for that. I want to pick up on something you touched on about transferable skills.
Yes.
Obviously, this is a big thing of convincing people who are serving a sentence who've previously lived a certain lifestyle
Yes.
that their skills that they've developed over the years, however they've come about those skills, they are actually transferable to an entrepreneurial lifestyle after prison.
Yes, yeah, and I think if you're not made aware of those skills that you have, through discussions and sort of workshops, you don't necessarily know that you can transfer them to, another sort of occupation. As we said, people who might have been selling a product of an illegal nature, they are very entrepreneurial, aren't they? And it's, we don't make any judgments, and I know you and sort of Jamie don't. It's about recognizing that person, isn't it, and looking at the skills they've got and thinking about, well, actually, how can I use those skills differently? But unless you have that conversation, maybe your peer group and your support network is of a certain demographic, should we say, but only by being introduced to, like business mentors, people in the business community, and my time in America, was about a month, and the business community, continues to be blown away by the skill and talent that resides within, the prison system. And it's about unlocking that talent, in the right way, which I think can be challenging because of, many reasons, as we talked about. But yeah, thank you. I think that's really important, that they recognise that they have the skills, and it's almost going through a process of understanding their skills and what I could do with that knowledge to help myself think about either being a better individual or an employee of a company, or taking the plunge and setting up their own business. I think that's really sort of quite key. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Or
Yeah, great. Hi, David. It's Stephen Anderson.
Hello, Stephen. How you doing, sir? You all right?
I am very well. First of all, thanks, Jamie, for sending me that link. I'm sorry, guys. I was trying to get on, and what it was is that, you're right, Jamie. You put it in a browser, another browser, and it just comes out. Technology. But thanks for that.
So did you so when did you join us, Sir Stephen?
Sorry, David.
So how far in did you join us?
Right. I actually joined you probably about, I missed the first 10 minutes or so. But first of all, David, a great presentation. Really, really informative and really relevant. And as some of you may not know, I know David from work I do. I work with the Forward Trust as an enterprise coach, and I work directly with ex-offenders. But going back to David's presentation, I think a lot of the experience and trying to replicate some of that experience over here, and as you know, David, the bodies that know, sometimes it's like getting water out of a dry stone sometimes. But there's quite a lot of models that you introduced that I think that can be introduced, and I'm still digesting it, because I spent some time in Atlanta many years ago, but I didn't go to. I looked at some of the entrepreneurial programs out there, and there are quite a few, but obviously your journey, I would just like to see it replicated somehow in more official bodies over here. And some of those bodies, I mean, how is the talks going on with some of the bodies, larger organizations?
I think, and again, I think maybe Jamie and Mark sort of chip in as well. I think it's been quite challenging, and again, sort of, I had quite a long chat with a group of like-minded people through the Cabinet Office about a month ago, talking about the challenges and barriers, and it was the same sort of thing. It was really that maybe entrepreneurship and self-employment, isn't really understood as much as it should be, and I know a lot of the prisons are thinking about, getting people skills to go into jobs, but what we're trying to say is actually, in my opinion, and hopefully other people's opinion, entrepreneurial skills underpins life in general, and it doesn't matter what your pathway is, those skills should be taught, but finding governors or commissioners to sort of put time and effort into self-employment is quite challenging. But we're trying to say 1 in 7 of the people in the UK who are employed are self-employed, and we know that people coming through the prison system are more likely to want to set up a business than the general population. So we know the demand is there from the people, and it's just really trying to understand how that might work. That's the people that you work with, Stephen, and you as well, Mark. There's quite a demand, isn't there? But it's sort of trying to find the capacity and the funding to meet that demand and offer that long-term support. And I think hopefully that's things we've been talking about, isn't it, Jamie, about being able to offer that long-term support, and also with yourselves and the Forward Trust, Stephen, isn't it? Trying to join things up so that the person has that support from in custody through the gate, either through probation and then after release. And I think it's quite a challenge, isn't it, to sort of try and do those things.
Yeah, definitely. Just to add what you're saying there, David, I think we had a meeting recently with one of the prisons in South Wales. We actually managed to go into a prison recently. I couldn't believe it, but it was an open prison.
Very good. Yes.
So it was quite rural, but they were talking about the new sort of their new priorities of employment and accommodation, family and drugs. They were giving us a very clear steer that they want people to be in employment for at least 6 months post-release, and self-employment counts as employment, which I don't think it did do before, or if it did, it certainly wasn't viewed in that way. So they were a lot more amenable than they had been previously.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, good. I see. Therese, is it Teresa?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hi,
got your hand
David.
up. So, hi there.
Yeah, great presentation. It's funny enough that myself and one of my other friends were looking at setting up a business to help people what's in prison, so entrepreneur-wise, so that we can set a business up so that they can do apprenticeship. Because I've got teaching qualifications, so I used to teach skills for working life and all that kind of stuff. So I want to put a program together so that they get apprenticeship at the same time they learn skills practically, and then they put into the business, and then they can branch off as part of another business. Does that make sense? So they're still putting back in, but they get to go their own way after a while.
Yeah, so it's a similar sort of model to the refounding model, isn't it? In fact, they get like a paid apprenticeship, so they've got at least some income coming through, but there's an understanding that they, whatever they're doing, sort of puts back into it.
So it was interesting to find that your presentation was something that I've been thinking about for a couple of years now. So it's very interesting how it's just finding out how to get this funding up and running.
Yeah, funding. Yeah, we know that's always a challenge, isn't it? But so whereabouts in the UK are you based, Teresa?
I'm based in London.
Oh yeah, all right. Yeah, I recognise the accent.
So I'm actually a key worker at the moment, working for an organisation called PAC.
Okay.
So I work with ex-offenders. We settle back into the community. So I work with them up to 3 to 6 months, getting them back into employment and housing and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But it's mainly with females.
Okay, all right. So you're out at what's the female prison? I want to say Lone Newton.
So I work with East Sutton Park, Send, and Downview.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I was in Downview, probably 3 or 4 years ago when in a former life, doing some entrepreneurial stuff. So yeah, interesting. And I think that's the challenge, isn't it, around apprenticeships? Because we know there's quite a voice, isn't there, at the moment about trying to get apprenticeships, for people that are in custody. But the whole issue of you can't give someone in custody a contract of employment, and where does the funding go? And it's just a nightmare, isn't it? And again, as we said at the beginning, £6 billion it costs every year, in terms of people coming out of jail. There's got to be a calculation for a return on investment to say, look, even if we had 1% of that, that's, what's that, £60 million? You could stop thousands of people coming back to jail, couldn't you? It's just crazy. But hey ho, never mind. We just try and want to support people, don't we, and to understand those things as well.
I wonder if there'll be. Sorry, I was going to say, just to comment on that. I wonder if there'll be lessons learned a little bit from how technology may have, or how technology's been used in prisons. You know, we've had sort of Zoom calls and Teams calls with people in prisons, which would have been unthinkable prior to the pandemic, and you know, the sky didn't fall down on the ground or anything. So
No.
So maybe there's a bit of an appetite to look at how other things have worked.
I think so. Yeah, I had a phone call literally today from a prisoner in Thorn Cross, and the mobile number came up, and I said, "Oh, are you out on Rottle?" And he said, "No, because you know I'm getting to." I thought, "Oh man, you're ringing me from a phone in a prison." But apparently, what they've done is they've allocated certain prisoners mobile phones, and you can then go into the visits hall for and you get like 2 slots a week. And you can then go and make calls rather than everybody bunching on the wings trying to queue up to phones. So I think that's quite again, it's that leap of faith, isn't it? You know, that the person's not going to be there doing illicit sort of messages. You know, they want to speak to their family, they want to speak to their loved ones, they want to speak to people that are going to give them support, don't they? And I think, you know, that's sort of quite key, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things I've been doing is liaising with the IAG advisors in the Forward Trust and like you, Jamie, I look forward to going back into prisons. Before COVID started, I used to do some presentations in prisons about becoming self-employed and starting up your business. Obviously, COVID knocked that out the door. But what has increased is the phone calls I'm getting with the advisors and the employment coaches in the prisons who say, right, we've got an enterprise coach, Stephen answered, they can phone me up, obviously under supervision, and call. But hopefully the rise in Zoom and Teams, I really hope the prison authorities maximize that a lot, and not just for self-employment but entrepreneurship, but also for self-development too, and using that, it's got to be increased. And whether I don't know the politics behind it, or whether it's a money thing or a thing just not wanting to give them as much, I don't know, but technology has got to be increased a lot in how we communicate with them, really.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Yeah, it's about, yeah, as you said, Jamie, the sky's not falling in, is it? You know, because we've done some Zoom calls, and you know, prisoners have done purple visits, you know, via video and things like that. But again, you're right, Stephen, isn't it? It's, you know, like yourself, working for myself, and then previously with Novus, you know, having that face-to-face interaction, you know, was really, really good. And I think because there aren't that many entrepreneurship and self-employment specialists, you know, when we withdraw from the prisons, you know, suddenly the IAGs are being asked, and it's like, well, who do you go to? Who do you ask? How can you do that engagement? And I think it's quite challenging. I see Larry, sir, you have your hand up for a question. Is that correct?
Oh, Larry, you're on mute.
Fraser,
Sorry about that. Dave, very good presentation, I thought. It's I mean, I've got a bit of background in the criminal justice system. I was in the police for about 20 odd years, South London, on the busy murder team, and then most recently I worked for a charity in a prison in Swaleside in Kent, and now I work for a charity helping veterans in 2 activity hubs in South London. So I've got a rough idea of most of the mechanics behind the criminal justice system. Now, your presentation, fantastic. I think we need another 50 guys like you out there just to spread the word like Jesus. You know, you need to spread that word out there because it makes sense. It's a no-brainer. It's just a case of maybe getting the funding, getting the people involved to do it. You know, because there's no point in getting these individuals back in within the system itself. So the concept is good. It's just getting people on board to support it. That's my take on it. I'm sure most people share that kind of view.
Thank you,
in relation to the second point I'd like to raise, like I said, I did work in the Cat B prison in Swaleside, and that's another shift where we need to look at how to change things. The prison regime, it's very sort of restrictive for the inmates, in there. They're allowed little time out, you know, and it's just getting the prison governors to understand, right, if we want this entrepreneurial thing to work, we need to sort of like support it fully and allow inmates to sort of do these courses, because like I said, at the moment, you know, there's only having an hour a day through COVID and all the rest. So that's another barrier you probably have to cross later on. Yes, so I think, and in relation to the third point, I think which Stephen made, in relation to technology in prison, in Wales side, they was introducing as part of a pilot prison laptops in prison now for inmates. So literally they can order their food, they can do so much stuff with it. So it's coming in, it's just getting all those mechanics, all those ideas together and putting it in.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it, with the laptops, you know, you've got people like Socrates and Coracle, you know, sort of doing their things. But again, you know, they're all reliant on funding, aren't they? You know, and a prison governor, you know, or the MOJ, they're quite good in saying, you know, we're going to go for like this, but then the security governor goes, no, that's not happening. You know, and I worked in the Cat B up in Lancashire. I worked at Garth Prison for a while, many moons ago, and the same sort of thing. You know, it's the access to the support and the long-term benefits is quite hard, and particularly, you know, if you've got someone who's maybe on a long sentence, you know, won't they think about running a business? Well, I think they probably should. There might be people who are, you know, vulnerable prisoners, people, you know, with a certain type of conviction that are not going to be able to get back into employment, you know. So how do we harness that talent, you know, in a legal way, you know, with the support of probation and their sort of license conditions to you know, set up a business? I think it's really very, very challenging, Larry, but again, it's quite an interesting sort of take, and thanks very much. So in terms of sort of next steps, so I was going to ask some questions, but actually you've answered some of them, which is, what are your experiences of entrepreneurship, which we've talked about, and I suppose, yeah, the question just to pose is, you know, what do you think we'd like to see in the future? You know, if we had a magic crystal ball, you know, what is a way forward? You know, what can we do to challenge the status quo, change the water into wine, as we say, you know, loaves and fishes, Jamie. You know,
I think you know, one of the things that I would like to see is a national conference, and not a local conference, but a national conference that maximizes, and obviously now via Zoom and Teams, if we can't physically get there, because obviously Boris doesn't know what he's doing, so I think it will probably be Zoom and Teams, but a national conference that addresses the benefits of entrepreneurship over some of the points, David, you raised in terms of the cost benefits of focusing and putting energies and resources into entrepreneurship programs. And I think what I would like to see, and definitely be a part of this, is a lot of the organizations on that 1 day or 2 day national conference, the organizations across the UK emphasizing what practical things they're doing, reinforcing and how they can work together with other organizations. But it's really raising the profile of entrepreneurship. So a national conference has to come about. I think that's what I like to see.
No, thank you, Stephen. Yeah. Excellent. What about yourself, Jamie? I know, because we've talked about this, and I know we'll talk to Stephen about it as well. It's about, you know, so I've had the conversations with the Cabinet Office with some other like-minded individuals, and they're doing a deep dive, they tell me, on self-employment, you know, as an initiative with the prisons. However long that will take and what the outcomes will be, you know, the last thing you want to do is for yet another pilot to be commissioned, isn't it? You know, I think we're at a stage where, you know, we've got enough evidence. You know, we've got the knowledge from the US, we've got the knowledge from, you know, the Forward Trust, you know, Inside Out. There's, you know, 3 or 4 other organisations, you know, operating in this area that have got some good results. But, you know, we're all scrabbling for funding. And for me, you know, I've come from a business background prior to working in education, you know, and we all can see the economic benefit and the return on investment. It's just, well, persuading people to do it, isn't it? And I think that's the real sort of challenge, to find to get in front of the right people, you know. Or is it to talk to people like G4S or MTC, and put this type of work more into sort of future bids, so it's a part of a core offering and not part of an ad hoc or an add-on. And I think that's what happens is, with the prison education framework and the new contracts that were done sort of 3 years ago, it's focused on maths, English, IT, construction and cleaning. They were the core sort of contracts, and the whole thing around self-employment and enterprise, it virtually fell off a cliff, because it wasn't part of the core delivery. There was no money to do some of the nice stuff. But as we know, and what you said as well, Larry and Teresa are saying, if we can embed these programs into the delivery or even in the workshops, surely that's a better way to think about how entrepreneurial skills can be used. Don't have it as a last resort, have it embedded. And I suppose that's the downside or upside, depending on the way you look at it, from the American programs, is that they don't rely on funding because they raise funds themselves through philanthropic donations, but they then have to shoehorn it in to when the prison allows them to do it. Well, surely, from 8:30 till 4:30, there's 30 hours worth of learning that can take place in a week. Surely putting one session a week on entrepreneurship and some quals and some support would be money well spent. But yeah, I'm not Robert Buckland, or people like that. So, but yeah, if anybody's got his phone number, we're happy to have a chat.
Yeah. Sorry, David, have you had any sort of approach from any investors supporting the project or not?
So, at the moment, I'm sort of be quite open. So the way that my business works, I'm a small community interest company. So I had some grant funding from companies, which has enabled me to do my programs free of charge to the prisoners. Some of it I've had some little commissionings from a couple of prisons, so they've paid for the support on offer. But sort of long term, it's the potential is, can you find you're almost looking at like a social investment bond, aren't you, to sort of say that, if you give us £1 million, we can stop so many people coming back to jail, and if we hit our targets, then as an investor you'll get whatever the figure is, 8-10% back, as part of the bond. So that's something for the future. I think I'm just quite a small organisation, but hopefully with the knowledge, but hopefully to work with other organisations. They maybe like to Inside Out Wales and the Forward Trust and other companies, to say collectively, and I think you're right, Stephen, we should be able to have a voice, that's coming at it from, almost like a spearhead, isn't it? I'm a small organisation. I know the Forward Trust is massive
Exactly.
it's vast, but Jamie, you're building and growing, so we're almost like little points pointing at someone, aren't we? Whereas actually you're quite right, isn't it? And you've got people like the Centre for Entrepreneurs that did the report, Unlocking Potential, but that's 5 years old now. There's not been any real pilots. They did the one in the Northeast back in 2014. They did the Ranby project, so they've done them, but they fund it and then it just stops. Or actually what we're saying is we want to keep it running, because there's a benefit to it.
I think that's definitely the challenge. I think
you're on mute now, Jamie.
Oh, there we are. Unmuted. There we are. Mute face. Sorry. Yeah, I think that's the challenge. I think we're like that. We're a new organisation. We're relatively small as well. I think it's one of the difficulties they've got when you're operating in what is perceived to be quite a niche area. Theoretically, it can be low numbers, but it can still have high impact. You're trying to take an entrepreneurial approach to financially supporting the organisation, and you're doing everything that you possibly can to do that, which sometimes can detract from who you are as an organisation, because you're just constantly, chasing the coffers, and sometimes you end up taking contracts that might not necessarily be in line with your organisation's values, but then it brings money in to allow you to continue. So it's a real difficult one. We're slightly in a different situation in Wales, in that although criminal justice isn't devolved to Cardiff Bay and the Welsh Government, there is often a desire for a a Welsh identity, and sometimes that can be quite advantageous when the the Welsh government is a Labour-controlled administration, whereas Westminster is a Conservative-controlled administration. So sometimes there's an opportunity there. It's just trying to make the most of those opportunities, as much as you can. And it's a real difficulty because, like any organisation, if you're properly invested, then you can have a greater impact. And more people can benefit from your services. You'll be able to evidence, the impact of your provision in a more, in a sort of a clearer way, and that kind of success will breed success because people will say, well, this works, that we must do more of it. So yeah, it's a real challenge. I'm trying not to come back to funding, but it is often all the time, about funding. There'll be other areas of criminal justice that will be having exactly the same conversation, saying, why couldn't this provision be mainstream so that we wouldn't have to be spending part of our day chasing funding? But it's a bit of a shame. Sadly, that is how it is sometimes.
It is. I think in terms of timing, sort of, Jamie, I'm sort of conscious that everybody's sort of busy. I mean, is there, from my side, I'm really thankful for, people listening. As the last sort of point, as I mentioned, I'll put in the chat box my email address if people want to contact me directly, and I'll put my website in there for those who don't know it. But basically, as we said, my organisation, similar to what sort of Stephen does and Jamie, is around trying to support people that have come through the prison system wanting to become self-employed. So I do a range of programs. We're trying to find ways of doing joined up thinking. Should we be competing with each other or should we be complementing each other? And for me, and that's why I sort of agreed to do this today. Jamie and I have had some conversations before, and I really like Jamie's values and I like the Forward Trust values very much. It's about collaboration and support and helping the person that needs the help, but we operate in an environment where it makes you be competitive, or competitors, I should say, rather than collaborators. But if there's a way to sort of overcome that and sort of get that working in the future, I think that'd be really, really quite interesting. So I've got no sort of further comments. Is there anybody else want to make any further thoughts, Jamie?
Yeah. Sorry, Jamie, go on.
No, go on. It's okay. You carry on. I'll wrap up at the end. It's okay.
I echo what David has said there too. And you know what, David? I think healthy competition is good because, you're running your business and you've got your social mission and social agenda. But at the same time, while you're doing that and developing yourself, the community around entrepreneurship can come together in ways, I don't know, ways which we probably haven't come together at all. But one of the things I wanted to say is we've got an event on.
Sorry, I'm going to have to go. I've got a meeting. Is that okay, guys?
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, Larry.
Thanks so much.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much. Really
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Right,
We've got an event on the 24th. And Jamie, after this, I'll send you some information on it. But it's a launch of an enterprise networking club that we're relaunching. And, we're going to have another focus. But what I want to introduce into it is definitely some of this thinking. And David, you've got the invite, haven't you? I think you've.
Yes, I've signed up to it.
You've signed up for it. Good. I'll send you invite later, and you, Marcus, and you, Teresa, too. If you want to come, it's a Zoom event from 3 to 5, the 24th. But I'll send you some details. Collaboration. That's what I'm going to see, is really collaboration.
If you get that to me before the end of the week, Stephen, I'll make sure that when we send a little thank you to everyone, we can stick the link in there as well. So
excellent. That would be good.
Yeah. That's lovely. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Really grateful. Really grateful to have David with us today and sharing his expertise. And just to echo that, it's about collaboration, which is when we were pulling this together. You were one of the first names that we thought of there, David, to ask to provide your knowledge and expertise here. So thank you very much. So thank you, Larry. I know he's not here now, but thank you, Amrit. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, David, for joining us. I've just put the link in there for the rest of the webinars this week. We've got a few more, so once we get them all uploaded, we'll be popping them up online, and then you can get them booked up and see any of the other webinars that you maybe haven't seen or wanted to view again. You'll be able to watch those on our forthcoming YouTube channel. So thank you very much.
That's it. All right, onwards and upwards.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you, Stephen.
Bye for now. Bye bye.
Bye now.